Well, that's Pegasus. I thought this was a horse I was trying to get at some point, but no, this horse is just on the market. Terrible power. No, never mind. Terrible power and heart. I mean, non-existent. Non-existent power and heart. It's like at the how? No heart, no power, no strength for nothing. That's just like. I guess I never really thought about horses kind of being born that way. It's like I'm just, like, is that possible? I mean, I feel like genetically, no. Like horses are just not built that way in general. Like they're supernatural like type of like creatures when you think about it. I mean, no matter what, like as long as they don't have any serious like deficiencies or something, illness or whatever that's robbing them of their strength, as long as they're eating properly, like horses are very strong. I mean, they can kick the block off of anything. So to see a horse like that with no power and no heart rating, like what? Is it a horse or is it like a gazelle? Like is it a, you know what I mean? Is it a donkey that they thought was a horse? Like, and that's no disrespect. I know donkeys are quite ferocious for sure. Final movie gives me problems all the time. Yes, she does. But I like racing with her, even though she hates pack. But I feel like she's always pretty strong, regardless of whether she's in a pack or not. I haven't raced on her, so I can't say how that ability affects when you race on her. But racing against her, she's always competitive. She's at her peak right now. She does have heart, and her power rating is pretty solid, and she's quite fast with 87. Oh, and she's tough. So that means she can handle the inside part of the tracks. She has the power to handle it, which means no matter what, she can pretty much hug the rail and really go off. And that's what makes her such a tough and competitive horse. Beautiful gal she is. Final movie. I don't have anybody in this race, but I also don't know if I'm supposed to be running one of my own horses in this race. But who would I be running? No, it's happening today. I don't have a horse entered in any of these races? Sorry guys, I'm just doing some housekeeping, which again, when I haven't played in a while, I feel like that's a better way to transition in, because if it's been a while, like it's kind of nice to know like who we're racing with, right, and what we're doing. As the first edition of the Best Colt and Older Horses highlight reel, today is going to be dedicated to our 4-year-old colt, Lockwood. Lockwood comes into this season with 5 Grade 1 wins at the 8 furlong level. One more and he will become a mile champ. He's up today in the 12 furlong California Stakes here. It's a grade 2 running 12 furlongs. He has 4 stats that are still in the mid to high 70s. All his other stats are somewhere between 45 and about 62, 64 along those ranges. And he's honestly been a blast to work with. I decided to put him more on a path of just trying to win as much graded stakes races as possible, because at the grade 1 level, it just seemed like we kind of hit a roadblock with him for some reason, and perhaps he, peaked to an extent as far as what he's capable of doing, but he's still such a solid horse, and I think on the right day he can win a grade 1, but it just hasn't happened for us as I've wanted. He does have 2 grade 2 victories, however, so again, he's a good horse, and we will use him for breeding because he has preferences for turf and dirt. I think that's extremely important in a horse for breeding, and that's essentially what I'm looking for in a lot of my studs now. I'm looking for them to be able to run on both surfaces, and of course if we can get a mare that can do the same, I'm always going to use her, and that's even better. But it would be nice to get a few more studs with that preference. Actually, most of the mares, 2 or 3 of them I think that are still in the barn now, actually have the flexibility of running on turf or dirt. So it would be nice to also get some studs with that. But for Lockwood, long term, like I said, we use him for breeding. We'll get foals from him that can run on both surfaces. We'll get decent speed. We'll get decent stamina. And we should also get horses with a respectable heart rating as well that'll keep their heads in the game. He has a good power rating, I believe, to go along with that. Those 4 stats are kind of his most important, so I think he'll pass down good traits, good DNA to the future generations, especially if we use him with the proper broodmare that will complement his stats as well as he complements hers. I just haven't thought that far because he's only 4 again, and I plan on racing him at least until he's probably 6 or 7, because again, grade 1s might be over, but as he hits the stretch, you see how he just kicks into another gear. He runs off the turn. We usually have last corner leader. We didn't get it that time, but as you see, makes such a good effort of rolling off that final turn, carrying the momentum. Horse is still staying with us to the inside. This was a very competitive grade 2. And you see going crazy, trying to give Lockwood the extra incentive, and it came so close to the wire, but we actually only finished third in that showdown. Such a close race, just lost it at the end there. And you could say obviously the ride probably should have had a little bit of better adjustment towards the ending stages and saving just a little bit more so Lockwood wasn't totally gassed. Red Ending and Sonic Kite closed in on us as the last second, pushed him a little bit hard. And I think some of my woes with Lockwood have also been the lack of performances I've had with him on my end. But nonetheless, he's still a great horse. We'll use him for breeding because there's a lot of benefits and upsides with him outside of just what he's doing on track. And that is why Lockwood is this week's best older colt and horse. Dude, has been a blast. New York Turf, I can't remember what happened exactly. I know I bombed it. Long Beach Derby, I thought they were overlooking us. Yeah, and we weren't overbooked as far as our money was concerned. And we ended up winning that, so that was fantastic. And so statistically, this is what I'm looking for in our horses now, right? Like, there's not a bad stat on here. 63 or 61, yes, I get it. That may be bad if you're expecting your horses to come out with like 90s and 80s all the time. Sure, if you're at that point, that makes sense, and I'm not knocking it. But for most of us that play this game, right, we still get horses that will have stats that may be in the 50s or 60s, maybe even the 40s, right? Or maybe even the 30s, right? You will still get horses that have that anomaly of just like that terrible stat trait. Usually it doesn't once you've done enough breeding, which in this pedigree, we've done a lot. Like if we take a look here. And yeah, I think it did start with Western Tiger, Swab Buster. Yeah, because these are all in-game horses. So this is a true 4th generation filly here. And she has an awesome pedigree of Hall of Fame horses on both sides. Gentle House, and then on the other side you have Tigress of Stone. Western Tiger, of course, and Arctic Crop. I can't recall if I got Arctic Crop into the GWS Hall of Fame. I'm not sure, but like it's a super solid pedigree of horses here. I would say the weakest links technically are the great-grandparents of Swabbuster and Nightbreeze, but they weren't terrible horses. It just they weren't the quality of mares I wanted at the time, but that was the best we could do. Those were like, that was early game. Western Tiger was like my first or second horse into the Hall of Fame. So that was a long time ago in reality, like real life years ago. I have to say that because sometimes I still get comments on some videos that people think that that's where we are. Like we're on day 289. I'll get comments on like video like 141, and somebody will be like, "Oh, hey, for your next race with that horse, do this or that," and I'm just like, "Oh no, like." You don't understand. That happened like years ago, like real life years ago. It's kind of a weird development. It happens every blue moon and it always just kind of throws me for a whirl. I'm just like, huh, interesting. Usually like when I watch series of things, like I pay attention to the order and I know like, okay, this is older or this is like more recent, right? I mean, maybe that's just me. Cafe Bronco handicap now. Okay, I can't even race him in a grade 3, so I guess you'll be taking time off till next year, 9 to 14. I can run you virtually anywhere at the long distance, which is fantastic. It's nice to have a horse like that, man. Gosh, I say it every year in this game, but I'm going to continue to say it because I get reminded all the time. The beginning of this year is such a drag. There's nothing exciting or fun to do until like the end of March. Like I hate it. It's just like 3 months of just absolute boringness. Like I like to be excited in every month of Gallop Racer for like a big race, a big week of grade 1s. Like there's nothing in the beginning of the year. And it's like there's still grade 1s that happen. It's just most of the world is obviously going through winter or just not racing as much. But things still happen in January and February. It's just not the mainstream stuff. I'm just surprised in all of the ranges that they hit with this game and countries and locations for tracks. Like they kind of missed that out. Like I said, Tecmo, such an interesting company. Thank goodness though, because we wouldn't have Gallop Racer without them. So, I'm just 15 furlongs is kind of a test, and I would be curious to see if he could handle that. I think he could. it's kind of fun to push the limit with him a little bit. I could play it safe and run him 12.5, but I just talked it up. So we're going to run him back at 15 furlongs. It's going to be a test, but his stamina is not the highest, but he's built to handle it. That's the thing. When you have a horse with stats like these where nothing is below 60, to me, you can handle races a little bit outside of your conditions. He has, again, another great pedigree, so I'm just making sure everybody's scheduled. I feel like I haven't put some of these horses in races, and you guys know how I feel about missing out on that. Major River. And also, I'm giving you guys an introduction of everybody that we have, because we have a lot of horses, and sometimes it's easy to forget. So, yeah. But we'll get to another race here very soon. Major River. What am I doing with you, Major River? In fact, let me see how many horses still have races. I'm not going to waste time doing this for everybody, but those horses I did mention are kind of important to pay attention to right now, specifically because we are trying to figure things out or chase things with them on a hot streak. So, building to it. Alright, so maybe it's just Major River? Okay, Angel Hearts. Do we bomb your last race? No, we finished 4th instead of 11th. Wow, okay, nice. So there's still like 2 or 3 horses that need races. Lockwood does, yeah. But I don't want to really waste the... I mean, I don't want to waste you guys' time with that. Unless you guys didn't mind. I may add it, but I don't really want to include it. I do want to at least get to... Okay, so... You know what I'm going to do? It's fine, because I don't... Unless, you know what? Let me think. There's still races we could enter. So actually... Yeah, there's still races we could enter. So... Who is eligible? Storm... Eastern Knife are good. Major River, I don't even really know what to do with her. They want her in a race in January, and to be honest, that's fine. Because, like, again, I guess I'm just racing her until I retire her next year. No, actually, I think I said I'm going to race her until, like, yeah, I'm going to finish her out for her 8-year-old season. She's a blast to work with. I say it all the time. I can't believe she's so bad in 2003. It doesn't make any sense at all. And, like, I've heard maybe some people have had success with her, like, if you're racing her, but, like, racing against her, like, when she's just an AI horse, you know, not human-controlled, she is awful in 2003, like, awful. The game gives her favoritism, but she comes in, like, second to last or, you know, just finishes way outside the order every time. It just, it's such a weird thing in 03 that actually just boggles my mind. Angel Hearts here by Gentle House out of Chasing Hearts. Thank goodness for Gentle House. He was kind of just like a quick hack to getting horses with at least some really good stats. But Gentle House is like a stud of studs, so that's kind of a given. Angel Hearts. I feel like you could go in a race here. Will you be ready? You're not 100%, but you can go at some point. Yeah, we can do something. China, that's what I thought. Yeah, we gotta bounce back with this guy. I feel like I've been on a little bit of a slumper. No, I haven't. Actually, I've been really good. See, this is what I mean. I'm always getting horses confused because I have too many in this game. This is why I don't like having more than like 15 or 20 horses max. Actually, I don't really like having more than 15. I have to be honest. I like having a very small elite you know, just group of horses I can keep an eye on individually. That's why I like champion horse racing. I can control how many horses I have at one given time. You know, like I don't have to race with them all at once. Like I can have them, and essentially that game they just kind of stay in the barn until you're ready to race them. It's almost as if they're kind of like inactive. You know, like they aren't aging back there. They're kind of just offline, so to speak. But it's still nice because you can control how many horses you have. I just hate racing with so many in this game. But the thing is, a lot of them are not even old. Like, okay, we have 2 at 7. Everybody else is 5 and under. And keep in mind, I think we still have 8 coming in the next 2 years. So it's just like, oh my goodness. This is why it takes forever for me to progress, because it's like, it's too, come on guys. You're telling me this isn't too many horses to have in this game? It's so much. It's so much. But like, genuinely, when I get a chance to race with him, like it's worth it. But still, it just I would like it to be a little bit more condensed because that also helps with breeding, right? I feel like I've been playing this game long enough where I do at some point want to start getting very, very, very specifically niched, you know, based horses with really good attributes and stats in certain places, special abilities or whatever that we don't see often. Like I really do want to get to that point, and I feel like it's going to be too hard with 20,000 horses. You know, I'm going to have to. We're going to have to eventually make hard decisions, and that's what I'm going to have you guys participate in. We're going to do polls. You guys will be my board of directors, as you have essentially kind of done for a number of decisions across games on this channel. But you guys will have to vote on which horses we will keep as far as which horses I race on, and one of the other options will also be which horses will we decide to actually let go, and we'll compete against them when the AI races on them, which I've talked about that several times on this channel now. For over a year, I've wanted to do that because I'm like, just there's too many horses. I'm like, at some point I'll have 100 horses. Like, we'll never progress, right? I want to progress. I want to get better horses. I'm sure we want to still get to some points in this game. But that's going to be hard to do if we're racing with 30. If I'm racing with 30 horses, and you guys know, like, I unfortunately don't always have time to record Gallup Racer as much as I used to. I'm working. I just have things I have to get done. So, you know, when I play, I want to make sure that we do progress and obviously have fun at the same time. So having too many horses, kind of, yeah, it doesn't help the plan go accordingly. So, like I said, you guys will be involved in that, and I'm sure I'll add maybe a couple other options. And feel free to give any suggestions. I would say everybody we're racing with now, like, I'm keeping 100% until it's either time to retire them or whatever. But like after like the new batch of foals come around, which is why, like I said, we're skipping breeding for 2 years. Like we have to skip it for at least 2 years because there needs to be a break in new horses that are coming. That's also been the problem. Like I've had 5 or 6 foals every year, you know, essentially entering the group. Like that's a lot of guys of new horses. That in 5 years, think about it, just at 5 new horses, that's 25 horses in half a decade. Okay, that's why we're where we're at now, because like we did a lot of breeding after like year 35, 36. Now it's good because now we're at the point where we have some awesome all-stars of horses. But again, I think it'll be better in the long run to actually condense our breeding, right? Kind of like how we do in Gallup Racer 3. For those of you that watch that series, we can't race with, you are limited, I think, to the amount of horses you can have in that game. So with that, your breeding is more selective because also you can't reuse the parents again, which is something I think most of us don't like. That's a mechanic I wish they wouldn't have had. But that's their first major game in the series, so it's understandable as far as just kind of a first time not thinking about it. But, you know, breeding is more focused, but then you also get really good horses once you kind of re-roll it until you get the stats you want, right? Then it's like, wow, this feels like the perfect blend of both of the horses that I wanted. That's what I want to get to in this game. We have that with certain pedigrees, but not with all of them. And on that Gallup Racer that Gallup Racer 3 file on the emulator that we run, a lot of those pedigrees are pretty solid now, where we're getting decent horses across the board, and we don't have to really worry about it, right? And we're at that point in this game, but there is still some question marks with certain pedigrees and certain horses, certain stats, you know, whether or not they'll work out. We've had that, right? I want to get rid of that, so I think we need to do that by cutting out, you know, just some of the breeding that we've obviously done. Like I said, we just have to cut that out for like 2 years and just not even bother with it, and just focus really on the horses that we have on track and trying to really attain as much as we can and win quality races with each horse. That's what I'm trying to do now. It's not just to win 50 races, it's to win quality races, win them by decent margins against competitive fields, and really just try to maximize the horse's potential. And if that means we race a lot, we do. And if that means we don't race as much, we don't, you know. But that's what I'm focusing on. Like title chasing, title chasing, I can do that when I have less horses. When I'm running 25 or 30 horses, I got to be honest, I just don't have the energy space to title chase, because I don't have them memorized off the top of my head. I have to look at my notes every time, and that doesn't seem time consuming, but I promise you it requires a lot, you know. And it just, for me, it takes the fun out of the episode, because again, I'm focusing on way too many horses. Once it gets to a point where there's 15, yes, then we can go on after specific titles I've never won in this game, and that to me is when it's going to get really, really fun. And I want to get to that point, and I don't want to rush to it, but I want us to get there, and I feel like we're not there, so we need to cut down, like I said, some of it, and just kind of, you know, get ourselves into the groove that way. Like I promise you, I think it'll be worth it. For sure. And there's still so much we can do, even at that point.